Time to check in with Carmi Levy. He's our CTV tech analyst, and we do this every Thursday afternoon. And Carmi, I thought we'd start with a story that actually kind of made me look and go, wait a sec, I thought this is exactly what ChatGPT was for. I kept hearing, we talk about businesses where AI might take over. People do programming, like, computer programming, because that's all ones and zeros, and this would be perfect for ChatGPT. But turns out it's not just as flawless as we thought it was, or am I misunderstanding the story?
Yeah, no, you're understanding it perfectly. Just because ChatGPT can do something doesn't mean that it does it perfectly well, or that it doesn't introduce errors of its own along the way. And so some research from Purdue University took a look at the code that ChatGPT creates, and it found that in 52%, so just over half of all cases, the code contained incorrect information. What's kind of scary is that the people who use it, so if you were a software developer and you were using that code, they found out that they were okay. Software developers were okay with using that code 35% of the time, and 39% of the time, they just overlooked that misinformation. They just didn't care about it. So on the one hand, ChatGPT isn't perfect. On the other hand, no one seems to really care about it, which is kind of even more disturbing than that first statistic.
Okay, so I don't get it. If ChatGPT was supposed to be able to take those sorts of jobs and just basically do them, for lack of a better term, with eyes closed, and it turns out mistakes are being made and not being picked up on, initially, aren't we right back where we started from?
We kind of are, and I think it's a sobering reminder, Aaron, that we need to sort of recognize that the current generation of AI tools is not perfect, that they won't simply walk in and replace us, whether we're writers, software developers, or even news anchors. Yes, they can do it, but we know that artificial intelligence has problems with hallucinations, going rogue, outright lying, getting it wrong, making mistakes, and so this is no different in this part. Yeah, and so I think it's a good thing because it reminds us that this is a tool, and like any tool, it has its pluses, it has its minuses, and at the end of the day, we still have to look very carefully at what's coming out the other end of artificial intelligence and still apply our human intelligence to make sure that it's giving us what we want.
It's almost like we need AI to watch AI, like a third-gen AI or something.
Well, I would say, why don't we just go back to first-generation humanity?
Yeah, there you go.
Is that humans should always be overlooking the far end of AI. It reminds me of the case where that lawyer used ChatGPT to create a brief, which he cut it and pasted the results into a document and then submitted it to a judge without verifying that it was true. And as it turned out, ChatGPT made up a whole bunch of cases. It cited cases that never existed in the real world, and that lawyer is now in the process of being disbarred. Yeah. So, reminder, put these tools in your toolkit. If you're a writer, if you're a software developer, if you're a lawyer, whatever you are, accountant, by all means use them. But the last touch should always be human. You should always be verifying that the AI isn't going to take us down a road we don't want to go.
Trying to dig up my old World Book encyclopedias again, I think. All right, let me go back to this next story. So this is happening in Ontario, but obviously it's a big story here in Quebec as well. You have 5 more school boards in Ontario now joining a lawsuit against social media platforms. This is now turning into a snowball down a mountain.
It certainly is. You've got the pile-on effect with school boards and private schools now added to the list here in Ontario, and other boards in Canada are also looking at launching similar action. And south of the border, over 1,200 school districts and schools have done exactly the same thing. So, it's not that this is going to go anywhere. I don't think Meta or Google or Snapchat, I don't think they really care about a bunch of school boards in Canada. They've got resources to outlast us in court, and I don't think these lawsuits are ultimately going to result in a win. But just as importantly, they send a message to big tech as well as to lawmakers that social media tools are causing negative impacts among users, particularly young users, and it's school boards and other institutions that are bearing the cost. It costs money to deal with the mental health impacts, the bullying, the cyberbullying, the inattention, basically this is a tool that has consequences. Someone's got to pay. So it's not like this is going to result in some huge victory and then all these tech companies are going to cut a check to a bunch of schools, but it might result in better laws that protect our kids a little bit better than
let's
they do
hope
now.
So. Next story up, I think this is great. It's not apparently not good enough that you could, whistle into Shazam or start to sing a song to find a what it is. Now YouTube is introducing something where just plain old humming is going to find a song for you. Is that the idea?
That's exactly the idea. I mean, we're all used to using Shazam to listen to the song. It's probably one of my favorite apps. But sometimes you have a song that you don't know where it comes from, but it's kind of bouncing around your head, and you could hum a few bars. Now, YouTube Music, it's going to start on Android, but they will be introducing an iOS version for iPhones as well, where it'll listen to you hum, and then if you hum well enough, it might be able to guess the song and then point you toward that song where you can either download it or stream it. And it's interesting because Google Assistant, it's kind of like Google's answer to Siri, has had this capability for a number of years, but we know that no one uses Assistant for that. We use it to check the time and the weather, and that's about it. So now this feature isn't going to be buried deep in an app that nobody uses. It's going to be used in an app that everybody uses every day. So if you're wandering around the mall or walking down St. Catherine Street and people are humming to their phones, at least now we'll know why.
I love the fact, you could with Shazam. I've whistled into Shazam before, and it'll recognize the song. I love that you said, if you're a good enough hummer, it'll recognize the song. If you're not, boy, that's pretty embarrassing. So
yeah, it's probably not going to work for me because musical ability and me were not good friends.
Yeah, and finally, let's close with this story. So Canadians, this is nice, usually it's Americans, Canadians can apparently claim up to, and not an insignificant sum of money, $375 from Yahoo in some kind of data breach settlement. What's this about?
Well, there was a huge data breach in 2016 and 2015. They announced it that for years hackers were sort of wandering through Yahoo systems, stealing data before the company realized what was going on. So this has been working its way through the court all these years. And now, if you're Canadian and you had a Yahoo account during the mid 2010s, you could be eligible for it. All you need to do is go to yahoo-class-action.com and file a claim. And you can claim up to $375 depending on your particular circumstances. You may have to provide some documentation. In other words, if you incurred expenses because of this, if you maybe signed up for credit monitoring or identity theft protection, you may be able to claim those expenses back. So this isn't like the Loblaws bread case where you didn't have to provide any proof. But if you've got that documentation, go to that website, file it, you might get some money back.
Okay, that's a lot of money, as I said, depending, of course, if you're one of those people who went to those extremes, if you will, and spent money to get all that stuff done. What is the website again? yahoo-class-action.com.
Okay. And it'll walk you through. There's a form. You can fill it out and submit whatever you need to submit, and then you will be added to the class. And they're kind of in the process now. The class action case has already been completed. Now they're in the process of finding out who's affected and making sure they get their money.
Okay, real quick, 30 seconds. Good news for all the original gamers out there. If you owned it, remember in television? How old is this? How far are we going back now? 30 years ago?
This goes back to 1979, 45
That's
years.
crazy.
So it was the original video game war, console wars, Atari versus Intellivision.
Right.
And now those wars are now over. Atari has bought Intellivision after all these years. They're saying that they bought a bunch of games with it. They're going to cross-license them. So now they're friends again. And interestingly, there is something called the Intellivision Amico, which is a retro console. That's not part of this deal, but the company says they're still going to bring it to market. So if you're a fan of old Intellivision games, hold on to your hats. You're about to be able to have something there. You can already buy Atari retro gaming as well. Now add Intellivision to that list.
All right, Carmi, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Take care.